What does it take to build a billion-euro movement almost from scratch? In this special edition of the Awake Origins Experience, I'm excited to bring you a conversation with someone who has done just that. Charlie MacGregor, the Scottish founder and CEO of the Social Hub. Charlie and I share an unforgettable memory. In 2013, we summited Mont Blanc, the highest peak in Western Europe. Back then, Charlie had just opened his second location. Now, more than a decade later, the Social Hub is far more than a chain of hotels. It's a movement with a market value of 2.2 billion euros, over 10,000 rooms, and a team of 1,000 employees. DSH has redefined hospitality, bringing together students, travelers, co-workers and locals under one roof across 18 hubs in 8 countries. But DSH's story goes beyond impressive numbers. It's also a purpose-driven company built on creating real human connection and trust. For this interview, I visited Charlie at one of his hubs in Amsterdam, witnessing firsthand the energy and community that embody the Social Hub's mission. Join me as we explore Charlie's spiritual journey, his growth as an entrepreneur and leader, and how he scaled his company into a highly successful unicorn, driven by vision, intuition, and heart.
It's funny, I used to talk and then it's all fine, and then when somebody says go, you're like,
I hate it. I never like it when it's, I always prefer with an audience.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm in front of the camera and there's an audience behind it, then for me it's natural. And when I know there's just this camera and there's nothing, then...
And how do you find it when, like, the starting part? Because that's what the part I always find the hardest. Like, doing a keynote speech, like I feel always a bit awkward, but if you're doing an interview, then I feel really comfortable. But for you, is it like, what's the hard part for you?
It changes. So sometimes I know what I want to start with in whatever setting, but ideally for me, it emerges. For example, tomorrow I have a full day, and then I guide a group of entrepreneurs. Well, they should not hear this, but I don't have a clue yet what we're going to do. And I prefer to really go in the moment and feel what is needed.
Yeah.
Or what I start to do also more and more is, you know, the I Ching? Have you heard of the I Ching?
No.
The I Ching is this Chinese booklet, thousands of years old. So Lao Tzu was involved, and etc. And then you have a question about whatever situation in life, and you think about the question, and then you throw coins, and then the coins lead you to a chapter in the book.
Wow.
And then that chapter is the answer to your question.
Oh, fantastic.
It's mind blowing.
Really, yeah?
Really. Every time it's like, what the fuck?
Wow.
Sometimes you really have to sit with it to understand it.
Yeah.
But it can guide a lot of questions or whatever thing in life. It could even be, okay, what do I want to know from Charlie today? Mm-hmm. Can go in with the question and see what the book comes up with.
Yeah, super nice. And do you find it's always spot on? It's always like, or do you find some of the curveballs you thought, oh, I didn't know this, and then it turns out to be a hidden gem? Or
yeah, sometimes you just really have to sit with it, or you don't like the answer and you want to look away.
That's funny.
And sometimes it's right away, oh, this is it, and then it's just endorsement of that you're on the right direction.
Yeah, I find a couple of times we do like, of course, different management meetings and different meetings with the TSH team and stuff that indeed I really tried to resist getting a script. PR team are here, so they're not going to like that, but really going in and really just trying to work out what's going on in the moment. And then I did my first with the senior management team, sort of, okay, I want to do some breathing. But I was like so nervous about breathing, yeah, like, come on, we're just going to breathe. But it was like so, I found it really, really quite nice that it was so, I was so nervous by doing something like that, but it was, and then I kind of ruined it because it went really well. I was like, okay, but then I started breathing, because I was like super nervous, and then I started breathing, and then I was aware the whole energy just changed in the room, and then it finished, and then I was like so excited that it worked. I was like, there we go, it finished. I ruined it all. I was like, shit. But it was really interesting how if you kind of embrace these awkward moments or these how you start things in it.
When did you start with doing breathwork?
When did I start doing breathwork? I guess probably the start of COVID. I think maybe in COVID I found somebody who was open for being in the space with me without masks, and quite funny starting breathwork during COVID and stuff, I guess. But yeah, I started that, and I did a quite an intensive course with this lady in Amsterdam, where there was quite long sessions twice a week, and then I sort of committed myself. I'm going to do it once a month on a Friday end of day session, really to sort of connect with myself. And then that habit slipped a little bit, but I've got back into it again recently. But it's every time I do it, I get a little bit apprehensive because you have to work. You know, it's quite. I've got to go to the gym or whatever. It's like every time I come away, I'm like, oh, I need to do this much more. I get so much energy from it.
I have the same thing. So for our members, we have these every 3 weeks online breathing. So it's very easy. You can do it from your home or in your own bed in the evening. And for years I didn't join. And last week I joined a session again and was like, fuck, why haven't I been doing this more regularly? It's so refreshing and boom, back to that essence.
And do you do meditation and stuff like that? Is that something that's...
Yeah, meditation I do daily.
Yeah.
I think I couldn't do without anymore, but it goes a bit in its flow. So sometimes with periods I can go more into stillness, and sometimes it's also thinking with my eyes closed.
Yeah, okay.
But with breath work, it's almost always back. So I did decide, okay, every month I'm going to go for this session.
Yeah. It's much easier. I've tried the breath work at home. It's something I can't really get into. I like it when it's really guided and you got somebody there.
I've got the same thing. Otherwise it's too lazy. I want to stop breathing, and it's enough if it's 5 minutes while you actually want to...
It's funny how it's quite confrontational, I want to say, but it's the wrong word. But there's a resistance there quite often to it. It's quite a...
It's almost the same thing when you go to the gym. I think 12 years ago you took me and some other guys to your trainers.
Yeah, that's right.
And when someone is looking and doing the work, it's so much easier to do it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny because maybe the last time that we probably saw each other was 4,300 meters up on top of Europe.
It's crazy.
It's quite funny. But that was a part of our training program. Pretty intensive.
I think I heard afterwards, I don't know if you told me or one of the other guys, it was the last mountain that you would climb.
Yeah, probably me, yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, because I think I'd been on a sailing trip before, so I'd been across the ocean and I connected with nature that way. I found it really interesting to connect with nature walking up a mountain. But I think it was, you sleep, we fell asleep in a room with 50 other people, and then they're all waking up at 1 o'clock, 1:15, 1:20, so you don't get any sleep. And then you sort of had to leave it really early in the morning, and it was harder than I really thought as well. And then we were blessed because we got to the sort of muddy moment on Mont Blanc, and it was beautiful weather. There was nobody around. It was insanely just special, and really, really hard. But I was like, the contact with nature, I missed a little bit. It felt a bit too manufactured, and it's not like walking with some friends up a hill. You're in big groups and cheers sometimes and stuff like that. And I missed I didn't get the same connection that I was expecting.
I think it was also just a lot of hard work.
Yeah, but I was struggling. And I think out of the group, I was like really. And you and Rutger were like, come on, man. Come on, you got to go. Because I was like, crossed that 4,000 barrier. I was like, oh man, I want to get a taxi. I want to go home. This is killing me. So it was, I found it also harder than I thought as well. But walking down, I remember walking down, that was because every step was like, you were getting more oxygen in your body was happier. And it was like, the conversation started getting happier and happier and happier.
I think it was the opposite. For me, going up was relatively okay,
really?
And then walking down, I collapsed. Like I call a helicopter. I'm not walking down anymore.
It was quite a quick descent, if I remember quite correctly.
But it's really cool to see you again after so many years.
Yeah, really nice.
And I think we met maybe 2012. You just opened your first locations maybe for 1 or 2 years.
That's right, yeah. We just opened, it was Student Hotel in Rotterdam.
Student Hotel back then, yeah. And now I had a look at where you are right now with the social. It's amazing, like holy fuck, what happened there with 23 locations across all of Europe, and still these ambitions to keep growing, and not only in size but also what you've been doing from a purpose-driven perspective is truly amazing.
Yeah.
So I'd like to dive into some of those things for sure.
Yeah, well, welcome to the Social Hub Amsterdam. It's nice to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Let me start with where did your journey? Let's start with your spiritual journey. Where did that start?
I think my spiritual journey probably started at school. My grandmother as well. My grandmother was, we grew up with her telling us stories about living in different houses when married to my granddad, who was in the army. She'd be speaking to the spirits of the house and telling people that the lady of the house fell down here and stuff like that. So she was always, but I had a really strong connection with her, and she used to pull me aside and said, "Believe," I was like, "What are you talking about?" But at the same time, I was like, at school, and we'd be smoking cigarettes or something. But I knew that there was a teacher coming. I knew if we had to run for a bus, I still have quite vivid memories of sitting in random park seats next to a guy. So I felt like he was 80 years old. He's probably our age, or something like that, but a proper man. And I was having like proper conversations with him. And the only thing even then I was like, I was meant to be in this conversation for this person. It felt so.
You felt like that?
Yeah, it was really strange. And I couldn't explain it. I didn't know. So I think it started then, And I never really thought of it as spirituality or anything like that. I think my sort of more adult journey was probably crossing the Atlantic with two friends. That was very, I found God type thing, the connection to the universe.
Can you share a bit about that journey? So you went on the ocean.
Yeah, so one of my best friends, he had a sailboat from his father who passed away, and he'd sailed around the world a couple of times, and he'd ended up in Panama in the San Blas Islands. And with no sailing experience, I was always like, we need to bring your sailing boat back and stuff like that. But it was always really a clear wish of mine, desire of mine to sail across the big ocean. So one day he said, "Yeah, I've decided to sell the boat. We're going to sail it back from San Blas. Do you want to come with me?" So we went with...
How long is that journey?
Took us 8 weeks in total. We sailed across the Caribbean Sea, and then up to Bermuda, and then from Bermuda right across to Holland. And the three of us were listening to Eckhart Tolle, the Power of Now, practicing the Power of Now on the audiobooks.
The three of you?
The three of us. It was really nice. Yeah, we were all in the sort of same phase of curiosity or whatever. And we liked the idea of being in the moment. The Starlink wasn't there, so there was no satellite connection or anything like that. Three guys, very small boat. We wanted a proper experience. We asked the universe for a storm, stupid us. But we got a storm. We felt from day one that we were being looked after and protected. We felt invincible in the way that you only can when you're 30 odd years old or something. But when I came back, I really felt that there was a much stronger connection with whatever's right at the top of the whole pyramid, but the creator or the universe or nature or whatever you want to call it. And that really, I guess, started my sort of more spiritual awareness, awakening journey, I think. And for you, when was your awakening?
I think I've been a seeker for a large part of my life. As a teenager, I was reading books that I could be reading today, but I could never find it. So it was looking, not finding. Okay, stop looking, and then looking again. And my 20s were mostly about being a nihilist and and run away from the emptiness. Until that didn't work anymore. So in my early 30s, I think it was not too long after we climbed Mont Blanc together that I started looking again. Like, is my view on reality truly right? Is there truly nothing? So it began then, and then I had a few years of transformation, which everything turned around. and now it deepens.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And then the series that you're doing, the program that you're doing, is that part of your sort of your higher purpose, or is this something that you think they're helping you on progression, or is it trying to help people raise awareness of this side of business, personal spiritualism?
Well, so what in the early stages of, let's say, my awakening journey, I felt, okay, but I also have a role to play into bringing more awareness to the planet, or raising the frequency, or whatever you want to call it. And at a certain point in time, I found out, but that's not for everyone. The audience that I focus on, it's about entrepreneurial people and leaders who can really be a change maker and are pioneering, like you are, in their fields. So that's where I feel that purpose, and conversations like this to me are for shining light on people who are these way pavers and are pioneering how to do it. Maybe they don't have all the answers yet, but they're really going for it. And with Awake Origins, what we're doing is to truly connect those game changers together across the world, so that it's not only individuals walking that path, but you can do it together in order to make a bigger impact. Yeah. And at the same time, it's also my catalyst for growth, because I have to do the work. I cannot preach. It is good to meditate every day if I don't do it myself. Yeah. And I have some very powerful guides and mentors around me to support me in that. But I'm growing with the, let's say, movement. Yes. So it's also for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, really nice.
How did it start with you with the student hotel now? That's called the social help now, right?
Yeah.
Was that, did you already started it before the sailing trip or after?
So we went, when did we do Mont Blanc? That was
2013?
Yeah, we opened the first TSH in Rotterdam 2012.
That was after the sailing trip?
That was the year of the sailing trip, basically. So I went sailing in the beginning of the year, and I said to my partners at the time, like, we're building Rotterdam and Amsterdam. Is it okay if I go away for a few weeks? And they were like, what? And then I was like, do we have to tell our investors, is it okay?
They were massive projects.
They were big projects, yeah. But I was like, look, guys, it's like, halfway through, 3/4 of the way through the build, if I'm on a building site, I just want to change everything as we go along. So it's probably the best place for me not to be. So, but, it was a big step. But I was also really aware that if I didn't do something like that then once you're open, you can't, the hotel is 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year open. So you're fully operational. So this was probably the easiest, the best time to do it.
What was your intention back then when you started? What was your vision and how did it emerge?
So I guess, I grew up, just to take a step back, I grew up in Scotland. I lived with my dad, and my dad, he fell into, they call it purpose-built student accommodation, so the PBSA market, nice name. But they build purpose-built blocks of accommodation for students. So there's nobody else in there. It's just, 200, 300, 400 students, nobody else. And there you need very little staff, and the rooms are all the same and stuff. And he fell into this, a bit my mistake. But he became a very big developer of purpose-built student accommodation. And I was a kid, and we're living just the two of us. So I used to go to many of his meetings during the holidays or whatever. And the meetings were with universities. So I would be sitting in the housing officer, and we'd be given a box of keys to select or whatever. And he'd be trying to do the deal where the university would rent the buildings that he would build.
You were a teenager back then?
Yeah, I was. This was 1980, so I was like 6, 7, 8.
Oh, really?
But I sort of grew up in his world, and then when he started, there was a few buildings where, like in Aberdeen and Edinburgh, even down in Plymouth, where I would go and help clear the buildings out. So we bought like an old Siemens machine for stuff like that. So all the old furnitures and beds we would clean out, and painting walls and stuff like that. And I remember at some point going around his business and helping him install furniture, and everything was the same. Like the color of paint was the same. The wardrobes were the same. I mean, the chair, everything was the same, whether it was Edinburgh, Aberdeen, Newcastle, Manchester, Plymouth, whatever. I mean, he had a lot of projects. And I was like, Dad, you know, everything's the same. I mean, why, you know? And it's like pretty boring, though. And he was like, well, who cares? It's students, right? You know, the university rents the building anyway. They pay the same if it's, you know, red or blue or whatever. And yeah, who cares? It's students. And it really stuck with me because he didn't mean it in a bad way. He didn't mean like, who cares? I don't care about the people. It's like, well, I'm nothing to do with the students, you know. I'm renting the building to universities, and the universities just want certain whatever product. And then I kind of went on my own journey, tried to work with him, didn't work so well in the early days, and left Scotland when I was 18 or something, and ended up in London working for a property developer. And I went in and did other property developments. But I had the opportunity when I was younger to buy basically the remains of his company. He was selling it. And we got drunk one night. I said, look, well, why don't I buy it? You know, instead of you cashing all of the money out, why don't you cash 80% out and keep 20% there, you know, sort of a loan, and I'll pay interest on it, and I'll finance the rest, and happy day. Then I've got 3 buildings I can take forward. That was kind of the birth of my first business. And indeed, a couple of years later, we paid him back, so happy days. And when I came, pretty quickly thereafter, it was the early 2000s, I came to Holland. And back in the day, it was nice. It had like a modem that plugged into your mobile phone, it plugged into your computer. And people would stand around me saying, wow, mobile working, it's really coming alive, you know? And it'd take like 10 minutes to get some email coming in and stuff. The whole room was full of people. So it's quite funny how these things, it makes me feel old that I say this. But it's to get a little bit shorter story, that when I came to Holland, I came across a protest of students who were campaigning because they had to live in squats and they weren't happy with the situation. And I basically asked one of the guys, I said, hey, where's the nearest university? And he said, the University of Amsterdam's there. And I walked in and I spoke to a housing officer for about 3 hours and came away going, wow, there is no private supplier of student accommodation in this country. There's a 4-year-long waiting list. Students are protesting on the streets, they're sleeping on the campus gardens. I think I can do better. And that was kind of the start of the journey. And the purpose, the why, as we started to develop the student hotel brand, was we believe students deserve better. And I always, you know, going back to when I said to my dad, I always saw the students, you know, I was never a student. I didn't consider myself clever enough to be part of that sort of group of clever kids. And, you know, these were the next leaders and movers and shakers and decision makers of our world. You know, these were the people who were going to go on and make decisions in our society. And the idea that who cares where they live was, for me, like, whoa, what are we doing? You know, we send them to great universities, we give them a world-class education, and where they live, yeah, who cares? And when I started talking about student accommodation in Holland, people were like, yeah, but when I was a student, I had to move 16 times. We had an engine in the bath. And I was like, okay, great. But, you know, is that what you want for your kids? Is that what we want for the next leaders of our society? And do we really give them then the best environment to connect and make friends and stuff like that? So that's kind of how my intention started. But it was quite difficult to persuade everybody that
because it was so disruptive back then.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of building a clean, purpose-built room for students was quite like, you know, my pitch in the early days was for all students. And as you know, from your entrepreneurial days, you have to adapt your pitch to make it work. So I just said, yeah, this is for the crazy foreign students. And the Dutch market said, oh yeah, those guys, yeah. They need good rooms. They'll pay a premium for good quality rooms. And of course, you know, when we opened our first building in Rotterdam, we had 40% Dutch students, and nobody could understand it. Nobody could get their head around why a Dutch student would pay to live in a well-furnished, all-inclusive, you know, everything taken care of, diverse community, purpose-built student block. And for me, this was so insane. You know, I don't understand why, you know, if you're a parent, every parent loves their kids. Every parent wants the best for their kids. Every parent worries about, are they going to make friends? Are they going to be safe? Are they, you know, where? And every kid has the same ambition as well. I want to be where there's somewhere cool. I want to meet nice people. I want to be safe, you know. And so it doesn't matter if you're around the corner or if you're from, you know, the north of Holland coming to the south of Holland. If you don't know anyone in that city, you don't know anyone. It doesn't matter. You know, it helps, of course, if you speak the language, but you still don't know anyone. So, and what we were offering is, you know, really community-focused environment where the focus was really on, you know, safety, ease, transparency, making sure there was a very clean contract. Of course, we had a slight complication that there was hotel guests in the mix as well. But again, I saw that as the strongest marketing tool we could ever have, because student accommodation had such a bad reputation. If I dared to invite mums and dads, come and stay in our building while you check in your kid, make sure they're checked in, go to the supermarket with them, make sure they got their stuff, make sure they're okay, come and spend a few days, and then go, you know. If I dared to invite them into the building where I was renting a room to their student, it must be okay. I mean, otherwise you're completely crazy. They're going to be your worst critics, you know, if you're treating their kids badly. So for me, it was like a no-brainer.
So if you fast forward now to today, where does the company stand today compared to then? What has changed also in the vision and its purpose?
I mean, the purpose, we did a brand change, of course, the student hotel. You know, we had, so again, the model of us is we have purpose-built buildings. They're quite large, 400 or 500 rooms. And we bring student accommodation, hotel, co-living, co-working, and bars and restaurants all together in one building. We have one entrance. Back in the day, people were madly against the idea of mixing hotel guests with students, with locals. This was like a no-go. It's going to be too dangerous. They honestly thought that a corporate traveler would jump on a young student given half the chance in a lobby. And I still find it so baffling, but there was a lot of barriers to entry. And we did this, we broke down these barriers, and we saw that actually this is a much safer form of student accommodation. It's much safer and more fun form of hotel. Co-working, you've got many more facilities, much more excitement, much more diversity and buzz and energy coming together. So when we started to grow, we saw that the student hotel started to become a barrier to us because it was quite difficult to get the corporate market fully on board. And once you were in, you knew, and it was like a hidden secret, etc. But you know, as the business grew, we needed to get to a bigger market. And at the same time, I think our social ambition had really grown from a startup, private equity funded, you know, double glazing back in those days. I exaggerate a little bit, but was a do we really need it? You know, it's like, you know, so the whole CSR thing was coming up, and I think we felt as TSH, as a student hotel, we were very socially aware. You know, D&I has been a massive driver of us, social interaction, social occasion, interaction in the neighborhood, you know, associations with charities, movement on the ground, refugees, whatever, everything we've been doing out of our instinct that it's the right thing to do. And we felt that the moment was a good moment to change the name. And we spent quite I want to say quite a long time, but quite a short time actually thinking about it. But I also wanted TSH. I didn't want a new identity. I saw it as a brand evolution. And you know, TSH limits your choice, of course. Yeah. But then when we came across the social hub, it was like, well, it puts social right in the heart of our new name. When you unpack it, you know, social is exactly what we are. We're bringing people together. A very social demographic we have in our buildings as well. The hub, you know, it's a spoke where people come in and they naturally meet, etc. So we embraced on that, and as part of that evolution, we had to define a brand house, and the why of the social hub changed into we believe that bringing people together creates a better society. And we're aware that's quite a lofty intention, a lofty why behind your business. Why do we get out of bed? But we really believed that we saw it happen, you know, by bringing students, by bringing locals, by bringing hotel guests, co-workers, offices, corporates, all of these different people together. there's a certain energy that's created in the social hub lobbies, which is, in my view, what is the main reason why we've been successful. It's refreshing, it's honest, it's genuine, it's safe, it's fun, it's dynamic. There's always something going on.
Is it a reflection of your own life, all the things that you're mentioning now?
I hope it's much more professional. I mean, it's an interesting question because I do realize as well the role of a founder is quite powerful. You know, the DNA of companies you can often trace back into their founding and their founders. So I'm aware of that. I mean, I do think the Scottish and the Dutch have got a very similar mentality or personality, and we're quite open, friendly people. I think I always grew up in Scotland. The more people at the party, the more fun it would be. So it doesn't really matter. We grew up in our early days. We didn't have any money for marketing, so we would have a student party, which was showing them the rooms. We would invite their parents. We would invite the university. We would invite the city policy makers, the head of planning. We would invite our lawyers, the bankers. Everybody would be there together, and they were the best parties you ever had because nobody was used to it.
Yeah,
and I think that.
But you are the connector within all of that, because you are in the essence inviting all those kind of people, and you can mingle and connect with all of them, which makes it, I think, relatively unique. There are not a lot of people who could have been doing what you have been doing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I find it also a bit awkward. It's, I think there's definitely a mentality that I have there. I sometimes find that I'm sometimes not a very good connector. I'm kind of a secret introvert who can play a very good extrovert. And I think in those sort of networking events, then I'll just go home. Like I hate kind of hide in the toilet type thing. I'm not very good at that.
Oh, really? I didn't.
But I think the mentality of encouraging people to just trust that it's going to be okay is definitely something that I hope I've had an influence in. And I think that word trust, I mean, it's interesting, fundamentally, I think what we've done differently, especially as a hotel company, we've trusted the people in our building that it's okay. We've trusted by letting the locals use our lobby, by inviting them into our space, that it's going to be okay. We've trusted that the hotel customers are going to enjoy the experience. And by, that's quite a easy thing to say, but it's quite a difficult thing to do.
So how have you been able to trust in that? Why could you trust it?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking a little bit about spirituality and stuff, and I guess in those days, for me, it was like a no-brainer. I mean, I just knew, I knew this was going to work. I knew this was going to be okay. I knew, and bearing in mind, when I started the business, I got my first funding in 2008 from a private equity group called Carlyle, and I shook the guy's hand. And the next morning I woke up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, it said, Carlyle goes bankrupt. It's like 2008, the start of the great financial. It took me like 4 days to call him because I was so scared. And then he was like, oh no, that's our New York department. Don't worry about that. It's okay. Oh my God. Is the deal still happening, And it was 150 million euros. It was like blew my mind. And the deal happened. But I knew that things were going to happen. And the idea of mixing people together it was for me like do you not see it? I mean, I can't, and so now I know that's kind of like a spiritual, or it's the trust in your intuition is not sort of a factual or unless an ego-driven thing and stuff like that. It really felt always much deeper than that. That there's like a.
You were able to tap into that future.
Yeah, and when you're in that flow, when you're in that energy, then of course you get so much energy. You become super inspiring for other people because they're like, oh wow, this guy knows where he's going. Should we go over there as well? And you're creating your own. But if you're true to yourself and tapping into that sort of, I always do this kind of like a sort of energy beam. so for me it was like a no-brainer. I find it difficult to even understand that people think it was even a big thing. You know, I don't. It was like so obvious for me. But I realized that there was, it sounds a bit easier, of course, and now it works, so it's easier to say that it's obvious, but back in the day it wasn't so.
What have been the hardest parts of the journey?
I mean, it's cost me quite a lot, you know, in terms of been through divorce and stuff like that. So you go through you have to sacrifice quite a lot. Personally, you're to be an entrepreneur, as you know, it is a kind of art. You're not, you know, it's and you put everything into it. Everything else is on the side. So I was a single dad for 7 years for 2 boys, and that was intense. But I was also, when I look back, it was these kind of extreme situations where you really rise up and you really dig even deeper and dig deeper into that energy. There's been COVID was exceptionally hard in terms of timing, deal structuring, investors, uncertainty, staff that were on the front line the whole time. You know, there was people that were really genuinely sick, and at the same time you're a safe haven for people who want to stay in the city and stuff like that. So there's a lot of contradictions going on in everything that we were doing. But I found, just that it was like 16-hour days back to back on Teams. I mean, back to back on a Teams meeting is intense. And that went on for like 6 months. It was the hardest we've ever worked, ever. And the personal transformation as well. And you can't get out there. You can't, talk the talk. You can't sort of charm your way out of a situation. You're sitting at home or got a fucking mask over your mouth, that was really, really intense. And very, I say, which is kind of worrying, putting aside all the damage that it's done to thousands of families and all that stuff, the learning process for me as a leader, as a person, as Charlie MacGregor was hard and painful, but I would definitely do it again because it was so. Even for the company, we had to restructure the business. We'd gone from me to nearly 1,000 people, sort of making it up as we go along, and never waste a good crisis. This was the first time really that I understood what they meant, because it was a crisis. It was, the business was a hotel business fundamentally, with and the students rose up and they came really to the rescue of the business as well, which was great for a lot of people who didn't see the real, because they don't pay anywhere near as much as a hotel guest. So from a business point of view, you could say, well, do we really need the students? And I was like, well, they were them. They're essential. And then suddenly they came up and they kind of, really secured, but also showed the whole business, the power of this community and the power of the students. And I think there was a lot of important learnings to be taken away from that hard moment.
Are you now in a relatively easy state?
Yeah, good question. It's easier. I mean, we after COVID we moved away from private equity and we secured some institutional founders. So we have 2 founders. One is APG, it's the Dutch pension fund. We've been working with them since 2015. Great partners. They wanted to keep invested and increase actually their stake in the business. And we invited another institutional investor, GIC, which is the sovereign wealth fund of Singapore. And they do a lot of projects together. So they've got a great track record working together. Very stable guys. So in terms of the long-term security of the business, fantastic. The market's changed quite dramatically. Since we did the deal, the interest rates have gone up and the construction prices have gone through the roof and things like that. So there's fundamental changes to the dynamics of the business model we have. So I think in terms of, and we've had to professionalize the difference of working with these guys, in terms of reporting and is next level. So we've really matured and professionalized and are very much an established, serious, well-functioning company, I dare to say. At the same time, there's, I think for myself, there's a different type of leadership that's needed. There's a different, the kicking down doors and buying buildings and being opportunistic is not who we are anymore. So that role is not needed for myself. And there's a much more of a management CEO needed, which has been a real good opportunity for me to sort of dig deep into myself and learn, which I'm enjoying. It's hard work. It's enjoying. And I think then it gives me also a bit more time to, embrace this sort of spiritual awakening, and really dive a little bit deeper into that as well and work out, okay, well, what impact has that made looking back, and how important was it, and how do I dissect what that was, or what was luck, or what was hard work, or what part was which. But I guess, to put it into perspective, a quiet week is probably not 50, 60 hours a week. So
exactly.
It's still but it's a lot less than where we've been from. So there.
And what are your reflections so far when you look back?
Yeah, I mean, I am smiling, so I get quite excited by them, but I still, I think my reflections are to really be able to trust the let's call it intuition, the intuition, the vision, and what I'm trying tonight to do is really to dive into this world. So some people have very clear visions. They see images of what they want to. Other people have thoughts and ideas, and then there's another that you have sort of just a knowing, like. Which I kind of have. That's kind of what I've always had, that I know that this community is going to, I just, no brainer for me. But I find that difficult because then it's like an inner voice. And then of course you've got your inner voice, your ego, who's like the whole time always on. And then you've kind of got your soul that you're a bit more in control of. And then you've got something which, with breathing or different techniques you can connect to much more. And I'm trying to discern which voice is speaking when. Yeah. And sometimes it's super easy, and sometimes it's like really complicated. And then slowly I'm realizing that I can get slightly more visualization sometimes of moments. But then you think, oh, maybe I'm just manufacturing that. So you've got this constant sort of insecurity going on, like before. But I'm enjoying that journey. And also talking about it with my executive board and sort of and the teams, and really being much more open about, hey, this is why I feel that this is the right direction to go in, or this is what I see, or this is what I think is going to happen. And
how does it work? Because on one hand side you have your intuition, on the other hand side you have the data that you work with, and in your case you have other stakeholders that also need to be happy. So in the decision making, especially the strategic decision making, how do you deal with that complexity?
Yeah, that's a good one. Fundamentally our business plan needs to stack up. That's just a given. We're now at the stage where we've got enough. We have 11,000 rooms, 8 countries. So you're able to test things much easier. We're testing a rooftop bar concept in Florence and in Barcelona. We've got new rooms here in City that we're testing. You've got a new team structure which we rolled out and we tested, and so there's various different. I mean, I think the vision and the end goal of the social hub is exactly the same. We're going to be really upgrading our products, upgrading the rooms to a much higher quality for students, for hotels, for co-living, The co-working is working well. I'm going to be making sure we add more co-working in all of our hotels. The common spaces are going to get big upgrades, et cetera, et cetera. And the F&B is really where we see, the engine of feeding and drinking, giving sustenance to the community and having the fun as well. So we've got the product, and then on the more sort of community side, really doubling down on embracing, bringing people together and creating a better society. And we're doing that with, Better Society Master Academy that we've launched, which is really embracing the fact that we're a safe space where people can come and talk about what's going on in their world, whether it be the queer community or environmental world or whatever it may be. And then we've tried to take some leadership as well, carving out 1% of our revenues for our own foundation, so we can really make sure we can enable, over 200 students to apply for scholarship and be part of this community as well.
I read about it. It's a massive commitment.
Yeah, it is, and it's a first for the hotel world and for the student world. And the student accommodation, per definition, is expensive. It's especially we don't have any subsidy from the government. We buy old office buildings. We have to pay the whole TOCO. So, and we take the risk that the renting it. So, it is expensive to rent accommodation in cities, and we really wanted to make sure that we could have an equal playing field as much as possible. So we work now with the universities where they have their scholarship programs. They provide the accommodation, education. We provide the accommodation, and we really have a support and a mentoring network next to the students who are coming in, and that's working really well. And that's something. So I think there's a number of these initiatives. I think this year where we hopefully will become a B Corp as well, which is kind of more of a nice label to really give us the credibility that we're on the right path. But I think trying to really turn all of that social element into a successful business case is something we're all tied into. And I think the sort of more I guess the where I hope we're going to get to is that this is embraced by a lot of people as well who want to come in and hold events here, be part of this, because they also feel that, hey, this human connection can really happen in the social hub, and that's what they also want to be part of.
So how do you look at, on the one hand side, purpose-drivenness, and the other hand side being profitable? Is that something you need to balance, or is it fully integrated in each other? How does it work in your?
I think the world has changed there. So when I started 15 years ago or something, as I said, the CSR element was difficult to get into. It was a cost, and I guess I also saw that the private equity guys tend to be the innovators, but at some point the institutions, they buy the private equity companies. So what I saw was that the institution said, hey, sustainability is really important in our buildings. We need to have a sustainable building. So suddenly the private equity guys were like, oh shit, I need to make my building sustainable, otherwise I can't sell it. So I think the institutions have played a massive role on really accelerating the building sustainability. And so the E is doing pretty well on a building. I think where we felt our natural sort of power is on the S, on the social part. Bringing people together, really interacting communities, breaking down barriers, being that safe space, and we have thousands of community-led programs every single year going on. So we felt we can really excel in the S, and we wanted to be industry leaders on the S. And how to turn that into a business plan has been a challenge. We pitched our investors, institutional investors, hey guys, let's take 1% of our revenues and give it to our foundation. They'd never done it before. Nobody's ever even asked them before, so it was quite an interesting pitch. And then we had to try to build a business case that this was good, viable business sense. And that's really difficult because you can't prove that Tony Chocolonely's is more successful because they're trying to solve the child labor in the cocoa field. You can't prove that Ben & Jerry's is more successful because they have such an amazing social program. So it's trying to dissect the social elements out of brands is kind of a hypothetical thing. We eventually managed to get approval, so fair play to these guys for giving us the trust. And where I get really excited about is if I can prove that it's valuable business sense, then I have, two of the largest investors in the world who will be pointing to, hey, we've got this small company in Holland, they did this social initiative, and hey, it turned out to be a great business move. Then you can start to move the needle. And I guess what I want to do as a social hub, what I want us to do is to really inspire other companies to embrace that social, that better cooperation, that giving back idea, that companies have got so much potential to influence our neighborhoods, our districts, our cities, our world. And if we can turn that into a good business sense as well, then that will accelerate quite a lot.
So what have you learned throughout the years of what worked when it comes to facilitating community, locally, internationally, both with your own organization, but also within all the locations that you have? What is foundational in making that happen?
You have to be authentic. I think this calmed down a little bit. A few years ago, everybody was like community. I remember getting on a plane and they were like, be part of our plane community. And I was like, you think there's going to be a community on this fucking plane? Are you insane? Like, what are you talking about? So it went through that kind of hype and stuff like that. And it's calmed down a little because it's easy to talk about, but it's easy to screw it up. If you're not authentic, if you're not being genuine about it, it's not going to work, so you have to be authentic. You have to, say hi to people in lifts and stuff like that. So there's a very basic level that the teams are really, really fantastic about. It's one of the things that I guess I'm most proud about. If you look at all of the hotel reviews, you see that the teams are like always top scoring in terms of helpfulness and friendliness and stuff like that. And that's how it starts. We've now got, we're in September. It's the check-in period of the students. It's one of the most exciting periods of everyone in TSH's year calendar, because you get people arriving for the first time, straight from mum and dad, the nice handover moments. There's tears, the mum's, and the dad's kind of not knowing what to do, go for it type thing. And then, I'm aware that they go home to an empty home now. So they're on this huge journey as well that nobody really talks about. The students are on this amazing journey, and we see what happens when their parents leave. We see what happens, and the magic really starts to happen. You start to make friends, you start to make the wrong friends, you fall out, you get, you do your thing, you start to miss home, you go home at Christmas, and you come back, and the students are totally different. They're really on the start of the rest of their lives. And then we have the second most beautiful moment is checkout in June, and there you see the power of a community. There are tears all around from all of the TSH team saying goodbye to the student community, who are also in tears, saying goodbye to the TSH community and saying goodbye to everyone else. And, we're lucky with TSH that we have this very natural community anyway. And it's our job to really build on that. And then bring the co-working community together, bring the local community. The locals come in, they're a big part of our community nowadays, and try to design events that are authentic, that are adding value to people's lives. And 10 years ago was it a beer and pizza party, and now maybe it's more let's do a personality test together. So it's adapting as you move through the times, and you got to.
For you, it's of course has become normal, but to hear this for me, that you have all of these different kind of people mingling at the same location, it's just amazing.
But as we haven't talked about it, but I've been involved in refugee camps for some time. And when we started in Lesbos, so 9 years ago, 2015, we started just volunteering. A few of our friends were inspired by the sort of picture of the young Turkish boy who was washed up on the beach. So we went to start volunteering. And we quickly realized that there was loads of different charities and individuals working kind of in separate areas and stuff like that. And we started trying to help either facilitate defibrillators for doctors or wetsuits for the diver guys, whatever it was that anyone needed, we wanted to do. And then we thought, well, there's a big problem in the northern side of Lesbos. So let's build a pop-up camp. So we called our friends from the festival world. Hey, we need some help, And we started to organize people as best we could. There was one kind of golden rule that we had heard from anybody there. Don't ask the refugees for help. Don't ask them what journey, because it's so traumatic and stuff. And we were like sitting there, a couple of our friends, and we were like, fuck man, we want to build this camp. Shit, we need an electrician, we need a doctor, we need a translator. So we just started asking them, hey, do you fancy staying for a couple of extra days and helping us? And what we discovered is a couple of things. One, by asking for help, the amount of people who want to help you is just insane. By being, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, this is why I'm trying to do it. Can you come and help? I really need your help. And once you give people this trust, this task to do, they start to stand up as well. And what we saw was in this refugee community, very fragile community, indeed seen, fleeing from war, etc. But given the chance to help, given the chance to give something back, given the
Sense of meaning.
And what Movement on the Ground has done is created this community-based way of building and running a refugee camp. And when you have this community, once you've got this cohesion, these humans just connecting with each other, then, respect, friendship, teamwork starts to happen, where places don't get destroyed. People don't steal the fire extinguishers. They don't, they realize that they're building the fire extinguisher housing. They're giving the fire extinguisher training to the people. And then when they move on, the next tent resident gets the training, and they pass on the knowledge, and it's their fire extinguisher. And that's the same with the Wi-Fi network, with the electrical network, with the drainage system, with the toilets, with the cleaning, with the cooking, with the whatever, every single thing we've done by asking people to be part of the community and help. And of course, by, getting our hands dirty and doing it as well. And really by connecting, by being one of the team, by being part of that community, you create this atmosphere where when you take a step back 9 years later, Movement on the Ground has redefined how a refugee camp is being built and is being run. It's cheaper, much more affordable to run. I mean, you're a fraction of the cost of running the cost, but the more exciting and important part is the level of incidence falls through the floor. It falls it goes completely to a different level. The interaction, the durability of things, of products, or whatever, of your services, and the number of services you can then offer massively increases, because it's all being done by the community. And I think, that's what I really like, is we talk about the social hub and how easy it is. We did the same in a refugee camp, where people are at the lowest ebb of their life. The amount of people that I've given an Arsenal football top to a guy who was like a Bank of Syrian manager. He managed people like our company, and he was in tears because the only thing he had from himself was his soaking clothes, and that's all he had. And then suddenly he's wearing a fucking football t-shirt or whatever it was, It's like, so even still, he stays with his family for a few days and helps, wants to give back, wants to contribute. And I think these moments are so inspiring and give you so much hope that if you can translate that into other communities. So now we go to our social hub community and say, hey, shall we run a volunteer program? Let's see if we can ask our community to also volunteer, to also take part. What does it mean to be part of a community, Is it just taking stuff, or is it giving something back and being part of it? And when you dare to ask these questions, you just get flooded with sort of positive responses. So
amazing. Right, when you take this as a starting point, what is your vision for the future? And you can take this question any way you like. For the social hub, for humanity, what do you envision, if anything at all?
I mean, I go through. I personally am quite excited by where we are. We don't need to talk about it, 'cause there's a lot of shit going on in the world. There's a lot of change, a lot of disruption. There's 8 odd billion people who are chosen to be part of this. It's a super interesting time to be on the world at the moment, to be on the planet. I feel, like what you're doing with this, what we're doing, there's she said there's thousands of people who are busy with this. So I feel that there's a real natural movement, which is full of trust, full of love, full of connection, full of wanting to be together, wanting to, you know, connect to other human beings. And I see that on, you know, our refugee business, our refugee world, of course. I see that in that community, a lot of despair and distress, but also some of the most beautiful and humbling moments of humanity that I've ever seen in my life are happening every time I go to these camps. When I look at the social hub, we're in a very privileged position. We have, as a conveyor belt, every single year, the next generation of adults coming in, you know, straight from mum and dad's production line. Boom, we get them for a year of their lives, you know. And I hope we're able to influence them in a positive way. That there's a lot to be gained by connecting to other people. But also we see there that there's a lot of fear and trust. You know, they're afraid. You know, the surveys we do, the number one thing is, hey, we're afraid of being pigeonholed, of being stigmatized. You're for or against, you're pro or anti, you're this or that, you know, and you can't express your meanings anymore in the tools that we've given them, you know, all the social media tools and things. And that's where I get excited by when I do go to the refugee camps, when I do go to the community events and the social hub, because it's all about just connecting and just speaking and being in a space with each other. And slowly I think that we're going to take that certainly the next generation are going to, you know, not accept the sort of ways that are, but the ways that can be. So I'm quite hopeful on that side. A little bit apprehensive as well. There needs to be quite change, of course, and change is always scary. But
well, yeah, it's going to be interesting the next couple of years. I think both looking at the structures that need to break down so that a new, more evolved structure can emerge.
So do you think something needs to break down? Do you think there needs to be
I always like the comparison of the caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. So in order to do that, it first needs, of course, to eat, spin itself a cocoon. Yeah. In the cocoon, it becomes fluid, like this caterpillar soup. And only when it goes through this transformation, through this fluidity, it can become the beautiful butterfly. Yeah. And I think that you can make the comparison on an individual level. So when we grow as a human being, you first need to go through a state of fluidity, in which for the ego structure, it feels like a crisis. It's a breakdown. Yeah. And then it can emerge as you can emerge as the next level version of yourself. And I think this is also true for companies. Mm-hmm. To go next level, you first need, like what you experienced in COVID, you need a period of reflection, doing things differently, and then out of it you emerge as a phoenix into the next level. And I think it's also true for societies. And it's maybe not a necessity, but I think in practice it often works like that. Something needs to break down.
Where do you think we are on that cycle then as a society?
Well, I think many things are being broken down in the last couple of years for sure. And my guess is that will continue for a while, maybe on a more massive scale than we're used to. And then hopefully in the background, other people, entrepreneurs have been creating new initiatives, new structures that can emerge. I think on many of these things, already a lot of work has been doing. Like you are also doing, you're creating a movement in bringing different type of people together, communities. And when these connections become more strong and people learn how to live from connection and love and from their inner self, if there are enough people out there doing that, I think on a collective level that can emerge through the shit has been happening for a very long time already. But I don't know.
Yeah, that is interesting. I tend to agree with you. I mean, I think as well, if I look at movement on the ground, the refugee NGO and the social hub, I do feel that we're almost in the wings. You know what I mean? Like you're waiting for the sort of main act to happen, and then you've kind of got these models, these ways of working that are absolutely wanted, needed, desired, and have been, refined, and I come across quite a few people as well who are, think, wow, it's incredible. Well, it's maybe not just it's a little bit, we've always been a little bit ahead of the time, etc.
Yeah. I have this futurist, Christian Kommer. I've been speaking to him a few times in the last couple of years, and one of the things he said is, I think he mentions 2027. 2027 will be the year that for the first time humanity will have one heartbeat.
Wow. So
because the connections will be there, and enough people are then aware enough that we can live from this connection. So live your individuality and feel that connection. So enough people are then fed up enough by how things have been going on the planet.
Interesting.
And then the next level can arise. So that will be the tipping point, and from there we can take it into the future.
It's funny you mentioned 2027. So they talk all on the progression of artificial intelligence as well, that if you look at Moore's law, that it's evolving at sort of 1.5 times of its capacity, and AI is very close to a point of singularity where it's cleverer than one human being. The next sort of step up on the line is it's cleverer than all of humanity, which will be around this time as well. And I watched again, the series Down the Rabbit Hole, but also What the Bleep Do We Know, which I find a fantastic sort of beginner's documentary into quantum mechanics and all that type of stuff. But I'm really fascinated by, at that level, everything is kind of possible until it's in a fixed state. And is, everything is connected theoretically. Everything, all these atomics, all these photons, all this really small shit is really all connected to each other. And I kind of wondered if, or maybe this would be a moment, where you're proving categorically that we are atomically connected to each other, and we can, those thoughts we have. Hey, where's Joel? I know he calls the next day. You can use that shit, you can, but it's proved. Like there's a science journal, there's like a book, there's like you
a cannot dismiss it anymore.
You know what I mean? It's like boom, and then because it's proved, it's like, oh, and then as you said, then there's like this unleashing of everybody's. Oh well, I'll just think that,
And that's the unleashing of hopefully a true hunger for humanity to grow, to understand that this is possible, but then to have the ability to be able to do that, to tune into someone from a distance.
And he did it. Richard Brechtman, the Dutch philosopher, he wrote a book called Humankind, and he uses there an example. I think it was Washington D.C. had the highest murder rate in the world, or in America. So they brought in a group of people. I can't remember how many, 8 or 80 or 800. They brought in a group of people to meditate on love and peace and stuff like that. So they did this experiment, and in his book he kind of talks about it. He said, and it worked. What happened coincidentally is the murder rate just went down by 25% just by these people think. But it just gets dismissed. People are like, yeah, whatever. That's not something we're going to invest money into. But there's so many of these examples that it kind of needs to be taken out the realm of, the yoga bears or whatever, and stuff like that, and really brought into, because then it's not a belief anymore.
Yeah.
You don't have to take that gamble where you're believing. You've got sort of a proof that it's there, and per definition, you just accelerate the whole thing.
Yeah, many of us need that proof.
Yeah.
Once proof is there.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I love about this example, it shows, of course, frequency. So when the frequency goes up, you go into more connection and love. Yeah, there's less murder.
Yeah.
There's less crime.
Yeah.
When the frequency goes up in a room, the sensitive people can feel it, like, hey, what's happening here? And way more becomes possible also in the creative sense.
Yeah, really. Yeah. And also tapping into others, that the whole energy, just that ability to be open for it as well. But if you're closed to it because you're afraid or you don't want to be labeled, and then it's then it makes it harder.
I noticed it many times with Awake Origins. We also organize retreats, and then, for example, 3-day retreat, and then you take a proper deep dive into yourself. Then afterwards, people have to go back to the airport to fly back to their country. You really have to prepare them. Okay, when you're at the airport, you need to put yourself into a bubble because you're so sensitive and all these energies are coming in.
Yeah.
But what if that would not be needed anymore? What if on the airport their frequency is also higher. So then life is less disruptive, and we can lift up each other.
Yeah, it is. It is really. It can get, down the rabbit hole is a good title for these films, because it's like so freaky. They're talking about, okay, you need an observer to get one of these atoms in a fixed state. So who was the original observer then? Because we all see the same stuff, So and then they're like, then you're one step and a skip away from this is all a hallucination. And then I'm like, oh my God, okay, I need a drink. So it's that's it. But I think the computing, I think AI or that type of technology has to play a role somewhere in understanding that, turning it into a sentence or a picture that we understand.
There's a reason why it's there.
Yeah.
I was wondering, how do you take care of your own state of being as a family man, busy entrepreneur? It all asks a lot. So how do you take care of yourself?
Good question. So I've been through quite a few of these sort of coaching sessions, whatever, and then one of my favorite ones is you draw a ball of how much time do you dedicate to work, to your family, and to yourself. And myself has always been a really, really small amount, and family also, to be honest, has always been focused on work. And that's something that I guess in the last few years I've taken much more seriously, because I've seen that it's affected my second marriage, which I'm determined to not make the same mistakes as the first one and stuff like that. So I think I'm really learning that a better me is a better we, but I still find it sometimes quite difficult to carve out time for myself, or even say a better me is a better we. I mean, it sounds like sounds a bit wanky or something, you know what I mean? It's like I still don't feel. So I do try to take more care of myself. At the same time, the time that I have, I kind of like to let loose. I'm still not finding that proper balance. But I do think that's where the breathing for me helps, and fitness. I try to stay fit, but we did it as well. We climbed Mont Blanc. We did all these things, and I do sign up to sort of triathlons or whatever, and I kind of need that. I haven't managed to find the steady balance. So you'll find that sort of over a year, like a third of it's like living like a saint, a third of it's living like the devil, and the other third's kind of in the middle, So I'm not really, haven't really got.
So you have these periods.
I have these, but again, that's what I'm really trying to work out, why I'm doing that. Why can't I be more balanced? So playing around with breathing, playing around with some regression therapy as well, which I find quite fun. Playing around with some different coaches, and really trying to, I guess, use this time to kind of experiment and see, what's working, what's not working, what do I like, where am I interested in, and embracing kind of the unknown and stuff. So, but it's I think the bigger meaning, and we really are seeing this also with our community, the co-working community, which is all startups and business guys, the students, of course, next generation people, and hotel guests, coming in for leisure or for work. How can we help them have a moment that is focused on a better me for them, and especially with mental well-being and for students is super important. But a lot of those programs are very applicable to the co-working community, and I think that's where we can. And again, what you said earlier, you have to walk the talk doing the meditation. So I want to be able to make sure that I'm also focusing time on making sure I'm a more rounded, better person and looking after myself, so that when I do, we do launch these things or we do talk about these things, and I'm not, faking it, and I want to be authentic and stuff. So I think it is, and it's becoming, I think, more acceptable as well, more normal, more understood. Well, we say that we're in Holland. I mean, Holland's light years away from a million other places, so sometimes easy to.
How do you experience that, being light years away from other places?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to some cities in America and they really are still talking about double glazing isn't necessary, So I mean, you're like, what? So there's sometimes you can think in your own bubble that we're all, and Holland, Amsterdam, is pretty progressive on well-being and looking after your teams and diversity and inclusion and stuff like that. But and Europe in general, but there's places in the world where that's absolutely not.
How was it for you to open your first location in the UK last year?
Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, yeah, it's super nice. I mean, it's funny because it's Glasgow, so I'm from Edinburgh, so it's there's this rivalry there. So it was my Edinburgh friends were like, okay, yeah, nice, congrats, exactly. But no, it was brilliant. And when I go back, my team here laugh at me because I start putting on a Scottish accent and stuff like that. But I mean, it's brilliant. And Glasgow is amazing. I mean, it's just vibrant. It's got so many creatives are leaving expensive cities like London, going up to Glasgow. It's booming. There's a vibrancy there of this next generation of creative community coming together, and they've really embraced us. Incredible. It's been incredible to see. We do like an ambassador program, so we reach out to every city where we go, and we basically invite 20, 30 people, come to Amsterdam, come to Barcelona, whatever, see what the social hub is, what we want to do in your city, and can you help us? Can you help us, and what do we need to do? What's the best way? What do you need? What does your community need, and stuff like that. So we start that program maybe a year before we open, and Glasgow has been one of our most successful communities there, and it's really nice. I'm very proud. We got a full English breakfast in one of our hotels. It's even got haggis on the menu, so it's like a double bonus.
What are other expansion plans for the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of projects in Lisbon and in Turin, which are going through the planning process, and they're nice big projects. And we're opening a second project in Florence, the start of next year, in Porto and in Rome. So Rome is going to be one of the first new build hotels, I think, in like 10 years. It's in the San Lorenzo district, got a huge park there, which is going to be a nice public park. And the same in Florence, we have a roof terrace, which has got like a 50-meter long swimming pool, this huge stairway, sort of 4-meter wide stairway right to the roof to really encourage the locals and everyone to come up. This is a roof for the neighborhood type thing. So I'm really excited about some of these projects. And then I think we see an opportunity. The office market struggling. This work from home is still not recovered. There's a lot of empty office buildings that were built, pre-COVID. The tenants didn't move in during COVID, and now nobody wants these buildings. So that's kind of our sweet spot, as a developer, is to try and kind of hope for a crisis in that market, which is not so good for the karma. But we see potential to try and buy some of these distressed office buildings and turn them into social hubs. And I think the main priority is focusing on Europe. If we look at Spain, we've got Barcelona, Madrid, and San Sebastian, 3 different tax regions, 3 different legal regions, 3 different languages. It's so I think the economies of scale. You start to look at the business through those lenses, where you say, okay, can we get a second project in Madrid, or a third project, and stuff like that, and how do we make the building more efficient, but also increasing the facilities for the local community. So I think stuff like that. And I think our main focus is really making sure that the social hub as a product, upgrading all the products, is rolled out. So over the next few years, you're going to see some quite big changes in the ground floors and F&B and in the bars and restaurants and stuff like that. So I'm really excited. And then indeed the rollout of the social campaigns and the social programs is something I'm very excited to see how that lands.
Many things happening.
Yeah. And you, what's your plans for the next few years? What's your goals? What's your sort of biggest wish for the next 12 months?
Well, it feels like the last years we've been doing a lot of foundational work with creating the programs, the platform, the community.
Mm-hmm.
And now it feels like it's time to grow. So it has become more international over time. It's more and more become this global movement of pioneers who are making a difference. So that's what we're going to roll out, or is being rolled out now. And I'm very curious where that exactly will go. I have this knowing that this wants to unfold. I think, well, like you had for many years, like this wants to happen or is going to happen. And in the meantime, there's always, well, it seems so far away, but every year I see we're getting closer to it and you see it just becoming reality. But I never know how exactly and when. So that's the vision is there and gradually we're going towards it.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, it's really impressive. It's nice. It's nice as well that these type of conversations can take place in a normal normal environment, not sort of you know what I mean. It's much more acceptable, I think, which is a big sign. Sign indeed that there's a.
I think it's massive that many things that can be talked about nowadays, or what you said before, to do a bit of breathing with your own team, or hosting it for the community that 10 years ago that would not be possible.
No.
And now you see it's slipping into the mainstream.
Yeah.
It's still pioneering, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I think so. And also the added value, I mean, just even having a meeting and just doing a check-in, you know, the value of these little tiny steps, but the value that it has across your organization is quite powerful.
If you would give one advice to entrepreneurs or leaders or creators who want to create from the inside out, like you've been doing, what would that advice be?
Yeah, I mean, my advice anyway for anyone who wants to, you know, I honestly believe if you're an entrepreneur, then you have this, you know, this comes from the source of you and your inspiration and things like that, is to fight like hell for it. You know, it's there's going to be a zillion things that stand in your way, but keep persevering. You know, it is a lonely road sometimes. There's not, you know, there's it's but if it's really where you know the future is and where you know you're going, then these obstacles are in your way to help you learn and to help you prepare for the moment that it happens. You know, everyone's, you know, the question you get is like, what's your hardest moment, or what would you like to change, you know? And I honestly, you know, all of the hard moments that I've ever had, or all of the things that, you know, you should be putting at the top of the list, are actually at the bottom of the list, because you learn so much from those moments. And it sounds super cheesy, but, you know, you need that when you get to where you want to get to, or even slightly on the way. You know, you need these battle scars, and that takes perseverance and determination, stubbornness, all those adjectives.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for making the time to have this conversation.
It's nice to see you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, nice to connect again.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where we all remember the mind-blowing truth of who we really are. A world where a global awakening has rooted us in the collective consciousness. A world where we go all in on elevating our frequency, our organizations, and innovating the way we build our society.
What does it mean to actually feel aligned with who you are? To let life be an expression through you.
We need to know who we are in order to function accordingly.
You see a collective arising, contributing to a brighter future.
So much is changing in the world. More and more people are waking up, truly discovering who they are.
To know and to experience that you're not the only one out there.
Are you hungry enough to go all in? We're tough, real feeling, the connection of everything.
Welcome to this Awake Origins experience.
It's time to come home. To a home where conscious entrepreneurs, leaders, and changemakers co-create a brighter future together.